Donald Trump was out on the stump the other day, and I kid you not, he let us know that we have truly returned to a meritocracy in this country. But if we just take a look at his cabinet picks, we all know that that is just not the case. We are basically seeing a DEI program for those that are loyal to Donald Trump. I mean, just take Robert F. Kennedy Jr., for instance. This is the guy who's supposed to head up our Health and Human Services Department, and he has spent an entire lifetime advocating that you do not vaccinate your children. So how is it that a guy like this, who is so antithetical to the idea of science, is the person who is supposed to be the best fit and most meritorious person for that job? And during his confirmation hearing, he was called out on how he has advocated for these types of conspiracies and how he uses them to just chase more wealth and chase more power. Here is Wyden, Senator Wyden, calling him out for just that. And if you do appreciate the work I do here, please do remember to subscribe.
The receipts show that Mr. Kennedy has embraced conspiracy theories, quacks, charlatans, especially when it comes to the safety and efficacy of vaccines. He has made it his life's work to sow doubt and discourage parents from getting their kids life-saving vaccines. It has been lucrative for him and put him on the verge of immense power. This is the profile of someone who chases money and influence wherever they lead, even if that may mean the tragic deaths of children and other vulnerable people.
And he is exactly right about that. Do you guys remember that RFK actually used to be a Democrat? But as soon as Trump was considering him for a cabinet position, it seems like he 180'd on all of the different views that he used to once espouse. And this is the guy we're supposed to trust to head up the Health and Human Services Department? And we're going to get into some more specific claims about the different conspiracies that he believes in. But Wyden is not wrong here. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has written books that have garnered him millions of dollars. He has run that child defense organization who brings litigation against drug companies. He has profited in that manner, all while telling the American people or anybody that he comes in contact to that there is no safe and effective vaccines and that you should probably not vaccinate your children. Here he is being called out for that specific statement that he made on the Lex Fridmen podcast.
Anti-Vax, you note that all your kids are vaccinated. But in a podcast in 2020, you said, and I quote, you would do anything, pay anything to go back in time and not vaccinate your kids. Mr. Kennedy, all of these things cannot be true. So, are you lying to Congress today when you say you are pro-vaccine? Or did you lie on all those podcasts? We have all of this on tape, by the way.
Yeah, Senator, as you know, because it's been repeatedly debunked, that statement that I made on the Lex Fridmen podcast was a fragment of the statement. He asked me, and anybody who actually goes and looks at that podcast and will see this, he asked me, are there vaccines that are safe and effective? And I said to him, some of the live virus vaccines are.
And this is what RFK does. He couches his language in ambiguities so he can always make a plausible, deniable type case that, yeah, of course, I'm pro-vaccine. I'm just pro-safe vaccine. And if we take a look at that actual clip that they are referring to from the Lex Fridmen podcast, there is nobody of a reasonable mind that would tell you that RFK is a pro-vaccine type of guy. I mean, just listen to what he has to say here for Lex Fridmen.
Difficult question. Can you name any vaccines that you think are good?
I think some of the live virus vaccines are probably averting more problems than they're causing. There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
Those are big words. What about the
Those are big
polio?
words.
Can we talk about the
Well,
let's start
here's
with
here's the problem.
Yes.
Here's the problem. The polio vaccine contained a virus called simian virus 40, SV40. It's one of the most carcinogenic materials that is known to man. In fact, it's used now by scientists around the world to induce tumors in rats.
So do you see what he did there? He said, well, some of the live virus vaccines might be doing a little bit more good than they are harm, but then he follows that immediately up with, well, there's really no safe and effective vaccine. He then goes on to talk about how this SV40 chemical was used in polio vaccines, but even he has the facts wrong there. Yes, this chemical has been shown to induce tumors in rats, but there has been no evidence to suggest that it does the same thing in humans. So even on that particular point, he is just wrong. He is wrong on the science. And this is the guy who we are supposed to trust with making policy surrounding health and human services. How is this the guy, out of all of the people in our country, how is this the guy that is supposed to be good for America? How is he supposed to make America great again, like the Trump administration claims that it wants to do? It just doesn't make any sense. And he goes back and forth on these comments all of the time. And when he's called out on them, he tries to weasel out of it. He tries to speak in ambiguous terms so he can weasel out of the next conversation. And it is just laughable. This man is not qualified to be the next head of the Health and Human Services Department. He is not even close to qualified. And when you mix that in with the profit incentive, it really starts to paint a really disgusting picture of the types of people that Trump is appointing to his cabinet. Here Wyden is again talking about how he's made millions from his anti-vaccine stances.
You made almost $5 million from book deals, mostly promoting junk science. In 2021, in a book called The Measles Book, you wrote that parents had been, quote, misled into believing that measles is a deadly disease and that measles vaccines are necessary, safe, and effective. The reality is measles are in fact deadly and highly contagious, something that you should have learned after your lives contributed to the deaths of 83 people, most of them children, in a measles outbreak in Samoa. So my question here is, Mr. Kennedy, is measles deadly, yes or no?
The death rate from measles historically in this country in 1963, the year before the introduction of the vaccine, was 1 in 10,000.
Again, so he does not want to specifically answer this question because he knows he is wrong about this. If you spend a lifetime advocating for anti-vaccine stances, positions, you go and write books that net you millions upon millions of dollars, how are we supposed to trust that you are not carrying those views into the Health and Human Services Department? And this is what he does. He just wants to muddy the waters. He doesn't want to answer the question directly. Instead, he'll go on to this random nonsense fact about 1 in 10,000 and measles this and measles that. And it's all just meant to dilute the waters. It's all just meant as a distraction because he does not want to answer these questions earnestly because he knows he is wrong. He then goes on to claim that, of course, I believe in all vaccines. But if his previous answers have shown us anything, we just know that that is not the case.
Says it's time to make sure that we blow the whistle on actually what your views are. At least we're starting.
We need to move
Senator,
on.
I support the measles vaccine. I support the polio vaccine. I will do nothing as HHS secretary that makes it difficult or discourages people from taking either of those
Anybody
vaccines.
who believes that ought to look at the measles book you wrote saying parents have been misled into believing that measles is a deadly disease. That's not true.
And Wyden is absolutely correct about that. When you have a whole body of work that suggests that you do not believe in the science and you do not believe in the efficacy of all of these vaccines, and then you come in front of Congress and say, oh, well, I believe in the measles vaccine and the polio vaccine, but then you couch it in this other language that gives you some plausible deniability for later conversations. It just does not make any sense. And I'm glad that Senator Wyden is calling him out on this. This stuff has to be on the record, because if the Trump nominees have shown us anything, it's that they are not willing to be completely honest with the American people. They are more interested in putting on a performance for Donald Trump so they can get into power. These people are corrupt and disgusting individuals, and they should be nowhere near the reins of power. But unfortunately, I have no confidence in our Republican senators to do their job and to advise and consent the president. I mean, just look how they handled the Pete Hegseth hearings. It was an absolute joke, and he is dangerously unqualified to be the Secretary of Defense. So I just have very little faith in the current process, because each and every Republican in the Senate seems to just be bending the knee to Donald Trump and are unwilling to show some backbone and keep these clowns out of office. And so RFK said that he was totally in support of all these vaccines, but over the summer, take a look at what he said.
None of the vaccines that are currently on the mandated schedule for children, the 72 vaccines, have ever been tested in a pre-licensing safety study. What that means is that we do not know. We do not know what the risk profile is for those products, and you cannot prove that or say with any scientific certainty that any of those products are causing.
So you're saying you still believe that no vaccines are safe and effective?
Oh, what I'm saying is that none of the 72 vaccines has ever been tested in a safety study pre-licensing.
So let me ask you.
He's just full of shit. Of course, we monitor the safety and the efficacy of these vaccines. And that is quite a bold claim that he just made. There is no vaccine out there that has been properly tested that is not safe and effective for the childhood vaccine schedule. What a bold claim to make. But he is just full of crap. This is just not true. So he's either dumb, or he has just convinced himself into thinking that all of these other quack theories are correct, and again proving to us that he should be nowhere near the Health and Human Services Department. Now, I'm really glad that Senator Wyden was calling him out on this stuff. This is what these types of hearings are for. The Senate is supposed to advise and consent the president. The president is not supposed to just ram anybody through just because they show loyalty or fealty to him. But as I said before, I don't have any faith in my Republican senators at this time, but I do think it still is important that we are getting these types of answers, we are getting these types of ideas on the record. So when history looks back on this, after the disastrous second Trump administration, we will know where everybody stood at this time. So call your senators, call your congresspeople, tell them to vote no on RFK. He is another incompetent individual who is not qualified to be the next director of the Health and Human Services Department. Absolutely, hands down, no questions asked. He is not qualified. So I will leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that can adequately push back against the right-wing media ecosystem that lets people like RFK float on by without a critical thought in the world. So if you do appreciate the work I do here, please do remember to subscribe. If you want to see all of the crazy theories that RFK believes in and his involvement in the measles outbreak in Samoa, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.